Welcome to the Systematic Code Enforcement Program workshop and presentation for the Systematic Code Enforcement Program. I'm Stephen Harrison. I am a senior housing inspector with the department, currently assigned to the South Regional Office and in charge of a Systematic Code Enforcement Inspection Unit, having currently 6 inspectors. I supervise those inspectors in the process of conducting field inspections, creating reports from those inspections, and producing the notices and orders that relate to our work. I want to thank you all for being here, and I'll get started with the presentation. All right, the Systematic Code Enforcement Program. This is the workshop. First slide. And we'll move on from there. So the city of Los Angeles has a population of approximately 3.8 million. And there are about 125,000 rental properties that represent or contain, again, approximately 850,000 rental units. Let's see if I think I need to reduce. Folks, give me a moment. I need to reduce my screen. Okay, that is all right. Here's some background. The city created a blue ribbon committee charged with overseeing rental housing that was at that point in time considered to be dilapidated. The housing department was formed and given the duty and responsibility to administer the Systematic Code Enforcement Program. The scope of the Systematic Code Enforcement Program is that rental properties containing 2 or more dwellings fall within the scope of oversight. There are SCEP fees involved. That's covers the first 2 inspections that would be performed in the process. So a first and a second inspection, what we call an initial systematic inspection, followed by a compliance re-inspection. Those are the first 2 inspections that are covered by the RSO and SCEP fees. So let's talk about the inspection process. In this slide, it looks like we have 5 points. We mail an inspection notice. Again, these are supported by acronyms, and we refer to it as a notice of inspection, or NOI. So you as property owners and managers would receive this notice approximately 30 days in advance of your initial inspection. This is informing you of the date and time that we will be arriving for the inspection, and hoping that we will have your presence to assist with inspection access. It's critical to the success and efficiency of the program that we kind of get, participation with owners and managers to help us or assist us prepare the tenants to expect our presence and to know that we're asking for access into all rental units. We post the property in the common areas. This is intended to reinforce the owner's responsibility to give a 24-hour notice to each tenant regarding the inspections. We inspect apartments and the common areas and the exterior of all properties. So that just means that the entire parcel, if you will, is subject to the systematic inspection, and the inspectors will be not only entering the individual rental units, but they'll be walking the property from front to back to take an oversight or take observation of conditions. Okay, all of the property is subject to the inspection. We issue a notice in order to comply if violations are found. I say if, because if violations are not found, that would be great. That would signal that, you know, maintenance, upkeep, management is, along with tenant cooperation, doing a great job. Unfortunately, I think, I'll say this, we don't find many properties that have zero code issues, deficiencies, if I may, that will be noticed to be addressed. But it's not a bad thing, let me say, to have a notice in order to comply that says we need to give attention to an area of maintenance, safety, habitability, and improve it to some degree. It could be, you know, general maintenance, just general maintenance. And we would hope that we'd all look at this as beneficial to assist in keeping the properties well maintained and preserving, as we like to say, preserving the existing housing stock. So we thank you for that. And hopefully we see you with a property that has no violations. How about that? Conduct re-inspections and close the case. Grant an extension or refer the case to a hearing. All right, these are 3 things that can happen upon re-inspection. Okay, we either close because we have observed that all of those issues that were set forth in the notice in order to comply have been addressed, corrected, and no longer exist. However, if some additional time is required, well, we can grant an extension at that point. So we have inspection number 1 and inspection number 2. Those are required within the ordinance that those 2 be conducted. And after that, the department has a discretion to grant extensions and continue with the process. Caveat to that is that there begins to be inspection fees assessed for each inspection that would be conducted after the second. So inspection number 3, theoretically 4 or 5, so on and so forth, would meet with a inspection fee. Now, the third option is to refer the case to a hearing, more appropriately referred to as the general manager's hearing. Takes us on to the next slide. Well, they didn't. Okay, let me go a little bit further about general manager's hearing, just a little bit. The general manager's hearing will be a call by notice for the owner to, or his representative, to attend a meeting. It's an informal administrative hearing that seeks to discuss the challenges and issues involved with successfully reaching a full compliance, which is the requirement also in the LAMC for this program we call SCEP, is that a full compliance, that is all violations corrected, eventually be reached. All right, the general manager's hearing is presided over by a hearing officer, not by the general manager actually. The general manager appoints a hearing officer who will sit and Here, the owner's position opposed to the department's position on the existence of code violations and the progress of a code case. All right, enough there. It leaves rooms for questions maybe later on. Let's go to the next slide. So there are two components to the department's duties under systematic code enforcement, and they are those regularly scheduled once every 4-year systematic inspections, and then there are complaints. Here we see that complaints may be filed online, by phone, or in person, and complainants may remain anonymous. However, access must be provided. So what does that say? It says that the department is present and available to respond to complaints that may be filed by interested parties, a tenant, an owner, a neighbor, a council person, or any constituent, let's say, of the city who sees something that they believe should be looked at by the department that has an oversight, that is the housing department, for rental units with 2 or more units on site. Okay, so 2 areas of inspection coverage: systematic code enforcement and complaints. Inspection process: schedule an inspection with a complainant and conduct the inspection. Yeah, the complainant, the individual who contacts the department and says, I think you should come out and take a look at this or that at a particular site or address, and I will meet you there and point it out for you what I believe is an issue. And if possible, I will give you the access. It's kind of key. So if we don't have, if that complaining individual meets us on site but cannot effect or assist the way to onto the property or into the area or space that needs to be looked at, and we cannot view it from a vantage point of the public way, or then we may not be able to, let's say, address the issue. All right, so we make a response, we give a response, we schedule and conduct an inspection or attempt to conduct it, and should we observe code violations, then we would follow through with a notice in order to comply to be issued to that property owner. Yes, if violations are found, issue a notice in order to comply. Number 4, conduct a reinspection, as we would in systematic inspection, and or close the case, or grant an extension while the responsible party, management, ownership, carries out their address and correction of code violations. And again, the case, if there is not an address of those issues successfully completed within a specified amount of time, then the case may be referred to a hearing. Okay, let's see. So here, the next slide wants to talk about the general manager's hearing. The photo, the picture you see depicts I would call that a judge in a robe with a gavel and sitting in his high chair position. Well, that's not really how these things go. Don't be frightened by the formal appearance of that we have here. Again, it is an informal, it is an administrative hearing that seeks to gain information, knowledge, and a suggested resolution or plan of approach to complete compliance offered by a property owner, his representative, or counsel. And okay, so the hearing officers are not in robes and they don't slam gavels on the desk. Okay. Whenever violations remain after the compliance date and no extensions are granted, the general manager shall conduct the hearing. Okay. The hearing officer may determine what? One, he may determine to grant a continuance and hear the case at a later date. He may refer the case to the city attorney's office, and he may recommend to place the property in the rent escrow account program, also known as REAP. REAP is a buzzword that if you're involved with properties, rental properties, and you've been through the process, you've read the notices that come out, it looks very official and very threatening. But this is reserved for properties that, for whatever reason, cannot be brought into compliance or are not brought into compliance through all of this process, including extensions and the hearing itself. Okay, so this is something that we want to stay away from, to be encouraged to do the best that we can in cooperation with people in positions such as myself to review and consider and determine whether we, say, extend the process and allow ownership to move towards a full compliance without the need for going to a hearing. All right, let me move on. So here we are at other enforcement tools. The first one here is the stop work order. This picture depicts the form that is used whenever an inspector who's on site conducting an inspection determines that there is work of construction in progress that requires a permit, and that permit has not been applied for or has not been issued, we have to issue a stop work order. This order would be delivered to the ownership by mail, similarly to the notice and order to comply. However, it has a little bit a more immediate weight to say, stop what you're doing and go to the Department of Building and Safety with your contractor and obtain the necessary permits to cover the work that you're doing on some required system, either electrical, plumbing, some level of building construction, remodelation, anything that alters, changes an approved use of a property, an existing property. So here it says when lead-safe work practices are not being used. That's another area of code enforcement that is safety directed to look at painted surfaces or surfaces that are deteriorating in their paint conditions, enough so that it is allowing the lead content in the paint to become friable, to be released into the atmosphere or into the surrounding environment, the soil, for it to be deteriorated in the way that a person comes in contact with it, ingests it, breathes it, or small children who like to peel, pick at surfaces like this might become exposed to lead hazards. All right, it says an exception. In emergency situations, owners have 72 hours to obtain any necessary permits. Now, what could that be? Let's say, what is an emergency situation? All right, we arrive at a property, a site, and we notice and observe that a waste line is, say, open, uncovered, and it's allowing untreated waste to spill onto the ground or wherever that open line might be. Okay, so open waste, electrical lines that are not in a safe condition. Let's say they've fallen, they've dropped to a level where they could be touched or come in contact, laying across the ground in water. Let's say we have a building that should be protected by a fire annunciation system, and that system is not in working condition. That could be an immediate emergency situation and require immediate address, correction, and permits as well. So the violators in these conditions, situations, may be cited individually and fined. How about occupant notice and order to comply? Okay, so this is another order that this department can issue, which would be directed to the occupant of a particular unit to address certain situations, mainly sanitation. Okay, and sanitation in the areas that occupant is considered to be in control of. And that could be in and around the unit, on the common areas, as well as the interior. It's okay. The slide indicates that this order is issued to tenants and to address sanitation issues. It also says the property owner is also cited. Okay, because ultimately, in all situations, the owner of a property has a responsibility to maintain the property. Okay. And it doesn't necessarily mean that this owner will perform a correction himself, because if it's a sanitation issue in the control of a tenant or in the areas that the tenant uses for themselves, then that owner may notice and cause that tenant to make a correction. Okay. Okay, going on to the next slide. So now we're moving into some examples of what could be caused, a sanitation caused by a tenant, and would have that tenant to be to receive an order to correct. All right, this is an extreme condition here. And we don't see this, well, that often, but it happens from time to time. And it requires some work here, some effort. But again, this is inside the unit, and this is not necessarily, this is not caused by an owner, I would say. So here is an example of where a tenant notice or tenant order would be issued. The owner would be on notice for the correction as well, with the ultimate responsibility. And I would say that owner would be directed by his or her real estate attorney as to how to best approach this. As well, they could contact the department for some guidance and direction. Okay, I'm going to move on. Again, other enforcement tools, the 2-day order to repair. Yet another tool that we have in the toolbox, if you will, a order that might be issued to address imminent hazards. And if work is not commenced on these for correction of these imminent hazards within 48 hours or completed in a timely manner, repairs may be conducted by the department's approved contractor with fees imposed to the property owner. And during winter months, the lack of operable heating appliances qualifies as grounds for a 2-day order. It says during winter months. So these are the months between November and, excuse me, let me get this right. Between, it is November and to April, November 15 to April 15. And those are considered the winter months where operable heating appliances qualify as grounds for 2-day order. Fees imposed to the owner, yes. So most definitely, imminent hazards should be corrected by an owner with his own contractor or qualified repair person in a timely manner, so that you don't have the instance of the department stepping in and performing these services or these repairs, because they become very, very expensive. Okay. All right. I'm sure we may have some questions in that regard, so I'll go on. Photograph here depicts a water heater location that stands very prominently in the front, but also to the left over here, we have interior walls of this room, this space. I'm not sure what this space is, but I can definitely tell that it is an interior space. And over here, we see concealed plumbing, or plumbing that should be concealed is open and visible because the wall materials have been broken to give access for repair. All right, that's fine because repairs happen and are needed from time to time, but this drywall that's been broken, cut away, and left open is a required material for fire protection. And in the event that a fire occurs, drywall is intended to delay or halt the progress of a fire and provide time for persons to exit and get out. Okay, it is a required surface material that should be repaired immediately once these types of plumbing repairs are addressed. Okay, so this would be a code violation in the course of an inspection process, very serious, because it leaves the framework of the building, the wood framework of the building, exposed to potential fire and flame spread. Okay, the drywall slows down the spread, and it needs to be repaired. Here we have a water heater that's definitely, it's connected, but it's not in a proper condition. The vent is not extending up through the ceiling and out through the roof. The water heater tank itself is not provided with earthquake restraints. That's two straps that necessarily have to be on all water heaters. Two straps, 1/3 of the distance down from the top and 1/3 distance up from the bottom. That's fairly frequently cited, but the venting is highly important because this is going to allow carbon monoxide byproducts of combustion to spill into this space. And carbon monoxide, very poisonous, very dangerous, and undetectable. So it is the silent, they call it a silent killer. All right, so that's a condition that is very important, and that would also be cited with a 2-day order to repair immediately. Yet other enforcement tools in order to vacate, orders for vacating of dwellings, unapproved dwellings or portions thereof which pose an extreme hazard to residents when occupied. It may require immediate vacation. Examples are lack of required emergency egress, lack of fire warning devices, structural failure, etc. Excuse me. Relocation benefits may be paid by the department with fees imposed to the property owner. Immediate vacate. So this, excuse me, this is an extreme situation. It means that a dwelling structure has been determined unfit for occupancy and use, and it would be tagged with this yellow restricted use placard that would be placed upon the property, and the vacate process would be started. Okay. So what do we have here? A janitorial storage space with a number 13. What does this show us? Okay. Bear with me. I'm going to see what the next slide holds. Another space or area that's jam-packed with personal belongings. So depending on where this space is and what the space should be used for or should be able to serve is a determination, an observation that is made during the inspection. We've got things piling up here. The immediate thought of an inspector is, what area or space is this blocking? Is this an area of travel or a path of travel? Are these items in danger of falling and causing additional hazards? And potentially, are they flammable items? Okay, let's keep it moving. I'm not sure what this photo is. Let's see. Looks like well, I'm not sure how to orient this photograph, so I'm gonna go on. Sorry about that, folks. Let's see, a towel, a power cord, and some kind of cabinet or wooden structure. Don't know what that's for. All right, in this photo, we've got what looks like items stacked up to a level that's up to a window here. That's kind of unusual. And then we have the ceiling that's just above. So potentially there's some obstruction of path of travel. There might be some hazard or danger of items falling. The accumulation might restrict this room from proper use. Moving on to the next slide, which indicates researching permits and where to obtain those permits. Permits are quite often necessary in the course of our work, and indications of a notice in order to apply may lead an owner to have to visit the Department of Building and Safety. The offices can be located downtown at 201 North Figueroa Street. In the north or the valley at 6262 North Van Nuys Boulevard. It says here, property activity report, newer permits. Yeah, property activity report is a section of the Department of Building and Safety's online information portal that allows the public to view the status of permits that have been issued. They may also view that a permit is in the application stage and has not yet been issued, but is in the process of being reviewed for that purpose. Okay, a couple of websites. IDIS for older permits. That's a tool or a website that is used from time to time to research for very older documents representing the proper use or approved use for our properties in the city. The county assessor's records, less frequently, but from time to time, also used to assist determination of an appropriate use of a property and other issues. Okay, but the county assessor will hold some information through the process of their tax assessments that assist us to make determinations about our enforcement. Okay, here's a slide that talks about interpreting permits. It says here, determining what has been approved. Number one, review an original building permit and any subsequent permits and plans, if available. Number two, only original permit and related alteration permits. Determine what has been approved. For change of use, a permit should be issued which specifies what is being changed. Unrelated permits do not suffice. So, and then the last one here says, let me see if I can get this out of the way. Only permits with final approval are valid. Yeah, so the end result of a permit application, a permit being issued, is to have the work related to that permit be inspected and be given a final approval by an inspector of the Department of Building and Safety. And so we utilize these permits to support our observations, our violation sightings, our documents, the notice in order to comply, and the ongoing process, which may lead us to a general manager's hearing and appeals thereafter, and a referral, potentially a referral to the city attorney to whatever appropriate enforcement action, ultimate enforcement action might be levied. Okay, so these documents are collected. They become a part of a record for a systematic inspection process, and they support our findings. They assist hearing officers. They may also assist the city attorney to follow up and make those ultimate determinations. I wanted to touch on something. Permits determine what has been approved if available. Oh, okay. For number 3, a change of use. A permit should be issued which specifies what is being changed. So often in our work, we find that, in fact, an application for a permit may exist, a permit be issued. However, the description of the work that was to be undertaken and completed is not accurate within that permit. Let's say we find a permit that is to remodel a kitchen within a dwelling unit, and that is done. However, in the process of remodeling that kitchen, the contractor or the person in charge of the project removes an interior wall. Well, most often these permits will say remodel a kitchen, no structural changes. Okay, so when the work that we see, that we find, includes a structural change like that, removing an interior wall, well, that means that the permit does not properly specify what was to be done. And that would need to be corrected on the permit itself. And then the work that is finalized would have to directly correlate to the work description. So when you're taking out permits, you need to be very detailed and specific about what it is you're actually doing, and make sure that your contractor does not go beyond that work description with the work that he completes. Here is an actual permit. This is an older, much older permit. It's probably an original for a property that, let's see, was erected in 1914. Okay. On the lower left, we see the permit number, and that's a very old number. They don't look like that anymore, 4-digit numbers. We see the property address in the middle of that document, 123 North Main Street. Again, permits, when taken, must specify what address the work is being done at. If 123 is the main address for the property, and there are, say, 4 units there, well, it should also say 123 unit A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, however that those units are designated. If the work is being done there, it should indicate that on the permit. Okay, so language and content of a permit, very, very important. You also see here the current use of the building, or excuse me, this is pointing to the proposed use of the building. So after this work that would be described for this permit is done, then it's indicating what is this structure or dwelling going to be. In this case, it's a garage. Okay. And these permits, as you can see, well, I changed the slide, but the permits can be a little bit difficult to read depending on the penmanship of the person who made the application. This is not, none of this is an indication that is done by a employee of the Department of Building and Safety. This is all either filled out by an ownership or in most cases by the owner's contractor, licensed contractor. I see a raised hand, but understand that we won't stop for questions at this time. Thank you. We'll have a question and answer period at the end. So code violations, what are we looking for? Which codes apply? City of Los Angeles building codes apply pertaining to existing rental housing. This will be chapter 16 of the Los Angeles Municipal Code, specifically 161.401. It leads us to codes pertaining to existing rental housing. And this is including building, plumbing, electrical, and mechanical issues, as well as the fire safety codes, etc., and even more. So it's not limited in any way to this. And as you can see, a stack of books there, those would be codes, and there are many of them. Okay, next is existing non-conforming properties may remain in the condition which they were approved. So that is over time and through infinity, it may remain as it was approved and constructed, okay, and going on unless the conditions of the property, it doesn't say that, but unless the conditions have been altered or there are retroactive requirements governing them. So existing non-conforming properties are commonly referred to as grandfathered conditions, commonly referred to mainly by the public, but not in code. Okay, so these codes that apply, the Los Angeles Municipal Code and others, building, plumbing, electrical, fire, you will not see the term grandfather, okay? Fire safety. Most commonly cited fire safety violations are smoke detectors. Yeah, I think that's probably number one on the list of items that get cited. They're required in all sleeping rooms and the rooms outside of the sleeping rooms or adjacent rooms and areas. Okay, so inside the bedroom, the sleeping room, and then as you step outside that privacy door of the sleeping room, there should be another device located within approximately 10 or 12 feet of that sleeping room doorway. And a carbon monoxide detector required in the vicinity of the sleeping room. In reality, the code will indicate that the carbon monoxide detector should be located in a area or space central of the unit. So centrally located within the unit. Okay. And quite often that is with the majority of our properties and their interior floor plan, they are in the vicinity of the sleeping room. Security bars, approved quick release mechanism is required in all sleeping rooms without other means of emergency egress. So approve quick release mechanism on a window is what this is focusing upon. A window of an appropriate and approved size, and a security bar approved construction and installation with a quick release mechanism that is properly maintained in working condition. Then we have double keyed locks. It's frequently, I guess, we run into that, but less often these days. These double keyed locks are not usually installed by ownership. They're more often installed by tenants who remove or change. We've found have removed or changed the original lock setup by ownership. A deadbolt lock, single cylinder, and a doorknob are required on all exterior doors to a rental property. So that deadbolt lock cannot be double keyed, that is, have the need for a key on both sides of the lock, what would be the interior and the exterior. There are fire safety considerations to the use of this type of a lock for emergency exiting purposes, and they're strictly prohibited, and in all cases would be cited to be removed and be changed to a single cylinder deadbolt lock. Fire alarm systems, building alarm systems should be maintained free of trouble. Okay, I mentioned that earlier. This comes into play with buildings or structures that are usually approximately 16 units and greater, and they have a fire alarm warning system that is located somewhere near the front entrance of the building, and it is a monitoring system that monitors all areas of the building and gives off a signal when there is trouble. In this instance, trouble meaning the alarm system has been triggered supposedly by fire. Okay. Here's an instance of a photo that was taken where the smoke detection device location is present. However, the device itself is not present. It's a code violation, always cited. And I might also add that fire safety, correction of fire safety code violations, or the non-address and non-correction of these types of violations would be a factor for denial of extension for compliance. That is, denial of a third, fourth, fifth inspection to continue a compliance effort. So these need to be, when this is present, needs to be corrected by the time of the number 2 re-inspection. Okay, that's the compliance inspection. So here is a window with security bar that appears to me to have no means of release. That is, no means to be opened by the occupant from the inside so that that window can be used as an emergency egress situation. This photo is offered because likely this room on the other side of this wall is a sleeping room. And this may be the only window for that sleeping room, the only means of egress other than going out the main door, the door to the bedroom. So this is required emergency egress. And with this fixed window security bar, emergency egress is not present. This would be an immediate fix and could be addressed with a 2-day order. Here's the double cylinder deadbolt lock that we spoke about a couple of slides ago. You see that on the interior, that's the side where this person is standing, you don't see the thumb latch. Okay, so that means this deadbolt lock requires a key on both sides, and that is strictly prohibited. Now we have plumbing and the most commonly cited plumbing violations. What are they? They are defective and leaking fixtures, leaking from sinks, lavatories, showers, tubs, and toilets is common. Caulking, plumbing fixtures and their connections should be properly sealed from water intrusion. So we want to have the fixtures sealed with caulk so that they don't allow water to drip down within a cabinet space or to the walls and start to form moist conditions, deterioration, mold, etc. Plumbing fixture surfaces. These are sinks, lavatories, tubs, and showers that are glazed. The glaze is intended to prevent damage. It's required, and when the surface of tubs, showers, sinks, lavs is deteriorated to the point where you can see the iron surface below, then that is a situation that requires address and to be repaired. And in most cases, there can be a repair, a reglaze, or possibly a touch-up repair. Block drains should be corrected to flow freely. Loose fixtures, faucets, lavatories, toilets, that's common, it says. And we need to tighten the fastening devices, the fasteners. Water heater. Los Angeles requires that water heaters are properly secured from displacement during an earthquake. That's what I spoke about, the straps on the photo that was presented some slides ago. We had the water heater in a room area with the damaged wall, and the water heater did not have any earthquake restraint. This includes temperature and pressure relief valve or vent, which is included on all tank water heaters, and those should be present, operable, and include a discharge pipe that extends downward towards the floor. Unapproved plumbing of water heater replacement requires a permit and is a common source of the unapproved plumbing violation being cited. Yes. So when a water heater goes out, we would, you probably want to replace it as quickly as possible, and that's fine. But we have to remember that a permit is required and should be taken prior to the repair. But if it's a emergency repair or replacement need, then you can do the repair and get the permit within a very short period of time. And I think that might even be 48 hours or so, a couple of days. It'd have to have the permit and the inspection and the approval of the installation. I would suggest that you ask your contractors to obtain the permit as they're doing the work, and they can obtain those permits usually the same day, rather than do that work and then leave the site and you have a difficulty getting that plumber back. So as you hire licensed installers, you should also be aware that you need to make sure your licensed installer obtains the required permits and also obtains the required inspections related to that permit. This is an example of a leaking condition, pretty obvious. Looks like a sink, and the faucet has a constant flow, stream of water. We need to fix it. We need to save water here in Los Angeles and California, as we've got a shortage. So yes, that's money also down the drain. All right, here's a water heater that's lacking, it looks like to me, the upper earthquake restraint, and it also has some condition existing over here where the metals are interacting with each other and causing this condition of buildup and deterioration of the metals. Okay, dissimilar metals connected together cause this type of damage. Soon will become a leak, and may cause damage. So there's no reason not to address this and have a replacement as soon as possible when you see it like that. Also, this is the temperature pressure relief valve, or T&P, and it does not appear to have the required piping extending from it. It's kind of obscured or hidden by this tag, but there is a threaded connection here where the pipe should be attached and extend downward towards the bottom, 6 inches above the floor at a minimum. Some of the commonly cited electrical violations are for GFCI outlets near a water source or in a possibly wet location. A ground fault circuit interrupter may now be required. GFCI, ground fault circuit interrupter. That's a outlet, commonly called a plug or a receptacle, that has the protection of a circuit interrupter, okay? And it disconnects or shuts off the power when there's a problem with a device in that area, okay? That with any device that's plugged into that outlet or on that line, let's say. So that's a little bit more, there's technicality to it, but I won't go into that. So whenever you see the outlet that has the push buttons, red and black usually, sometimes they're all white, those are circuit interrupters, and they should be in working condition. Many of them have a green light or a very small red light that would tell you that there's a problem. Or green light if there's no problem, or red light if there is, or no light. When cover plates are missing or defective, they should be replaced. When exposed wires are exposed wiring. Wires should be concealed in approved conduits and junction boxes. Yes, all wires should be concealed in some manner, in some appropriate way. And when they are not, and when they are exposed, then there's an issue that we would address. Light fixtures should be working and free from defects. Defective receptacle outlets should be in proper working condition, and unapproved electrical wiring and electrical upgrades are common. Yeah, because work can get done very quickly without obtaining a permit. However, building code and municipal code tells us permits are required. Let's think about that whenever you plan some work. If it is electrical, if it is plumbing, if it is some kind of construction that changes the footprint, the square footage, the shape, of a structure or the floor plan in some way, then in most instances, a permit is required. So let's make sure that we take that approach. It's the least costly approach. It's the least disruptive to your business. And it makes certain that your property and its value is protected going forward when you have those permits in proper order on file for the parcel. They're a good thing, in other words. Examples of exposed wiring here. This wiring connection conduit that supplies power to this garbage disposal underneath this kitchen sink is not in proper repair. And that's a violation that we have to cite because those loose wires could cross connect or fall in contact with some other metal or be touched or grabbed and cause electrical shock or fire. Okay, so there's a reason for having these properly connected, is to tuck the wires well within the disposal device so that they're not damaged or exposed. Again, this is some aftermarket wiring, unprofessional wiring that provides the power for a ceiling fan. Okay, obvious code violation, obvious citing condition. Common maintenance violations. Walls and ceilings, interior walls, ceilings, and paint should be maintained free from defects. Yes. We saw the interior wall where the water heater was located. Windows and doors should operate. That is, they should open, close, and lock properly. Okay. Without special knowledge, without excess force, without tools to be used to assist that proper operation. Excuse me. Floor covering should be intact and free from tripping hazards. The premises, including trash, debris, and overgrown lawns, should be maintained. Counter and drain board, that's the countertop usually in the kitchen or bathroom, should be intact. And it says impermeable, which means watertight or water resistant. These are hard surfaces like tile, like formica, like corian, like stone, that are used for counter surfaces. Wood is not a finished material for a countertop. It is not waterproof. Untreated cement or concrete, I should say, is also not. It's becoming more prevalent, but it has to be installed and finished with a sealer and protectant in a proper manner to be impermeable for water, because concrete itself is not impermeable. Stair and deck surfaces should be maintained. Yeah, that's kind of a vague and broad statement, but an important one, because stairs are a high focus during our inspections, and the condition of stairs, both interior and exterior. But most often it says stair and deck. This would be talking about an exterior stair and the elevated walking surface that would be at a second or third level of a property, and need to be maintained in hard, smooth, and sealed to be also impermeable to water. here's a floor, a vinyl floor within a unit, and obviously some of the tiles are missing. That was a cited condition, and that was the photo that went along with it. I suppose we took the photo because the repair was never made. Most often we don't have these photos if the repairs are made at the follow-up and compliance reinspection, but possibly. So it's just one of those in our file inventory of photos. Weather protection. Most commonly cited weather protection violations are exterior paint. Areas of peeling paint can not only be the source of water damage, but could also cause great harm. Window, door, glass. Glass should be intact. It should be free from cracks. Yes, that's true. Exterior walls, openings in stucco or siding could be the source of extensive water damage. So it's just saying that, as I stated early on, the entire property is subject to the systematic code enforcement inspection. And here the exterior walls. Most often in Southern California, we have stucco, but we still have siding, wood siding, or some other siding material. But it has to be maintained in good repair. And the intent of that is to prevent water intrusion and the damage that water intrusion might cause. Protect, preserve the property and the value of the property. Roof weatherproofing. Roof leaks could cause great damage, and if left unattended, could even cause harm. Okay, that's it's pretty self-explanatory. One of the things that we respond to and find quite often during the rainy seasons are collapsed interior ceilings, and that's a condition that results most often from weathered or deteriorated roofing. Okay, so this is what we're speaking about when we say roof weatherproofing. It's the shingle, the tile, or whatever material is used to cover a roof. And the roof condition is allowing water intrusion that results in a collapsed interior ceiling. That happens quite often in the rainy season here. Okay, now here's an extreme example of deteriorated exterior weather protection in the form of paint on a wood-sided property. Okay, the wood siding, its paint is so deteriorated that we see underneath the actual wood itself looks like without primer. So the yellow paint peeling and chipping is one of those situations that invoke the lead hazard approach to compliance and response. This is a lead hazard location for sure because of its age of construction. This property would be determined by past knowledge, by past testing and current testing. It could be by taking the chip samples and having those examined by the lab to find out the lead content. But it's pretty certain that any property that is constructed prior to the year of 1978, boy, I'm a little rusty. I'm sorry about that. But these properties that are pre-1970s, mid to late 1970s, are all known to be in the time period where paint in California and in the United States did contain lead. Lead is a product that made paint harden and last longer. Okay, but it is also a ingredient that is harmful. So at a point in time, lead was outlawed to be included in paint, and you saw less and less the availability of oil-based paints, and the move towards water-based, waterborne paint products. These products don't contain lead and are used when you have a remediation site like this. This site would require a contractor with appropriate level of training and skill, possibly certification, to be able to address, prep, and prepare this property in a safe manner and do the containment, protect his employees, protect the occupants and the surrounding environment with the proper containment methods to keep it from entering into the environment. Very important. What are the benefits of inspections? Safety. Through inspections, inspectors identify code violations which should be repaired. If left unattended, these violations could cause somebody to become injured. Maintaining habitability. Buildings that go through the inspection process are held to code standards in order to maintain the habitability of each unit. Let's see. James Q. Wilson and George L. Kelling present to us the broken windows theory, which says, consider a building with a few broken windows. If the windows are not repaired, the tendency is for vandals to break more windows. Eventually, they may even break into the building, and if it's unoccupied, perhaps become squatters, or even light fires in the inside of the building or structure. So it's the thought process that it's better to maintain a property in a habitable, safe condition at all times, and board it or secure it from access if necessary, including the boarding of windows, doors, and erecting of fences or gates that prevent unauthorized access.